Welcome to the virtual public hearing for the Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. This hearing is hosted by the City of Round Rock in partnership with Williamson County and the Texas Department of Transportation. We appreciate your participation in the public hearing and your interest in this Kenny Fort project. Please note that this presentation can be paused at any point to allow you more time to review the slides. Prior to December 16, 2014, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, reviewed and approved documents prepared under the National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA. However, on December 16, 2014, the Texas Department of Transportation assumed responsibility from FHWA to review and approve certain assigned NEPA environmental documents. This Memorandum of Understanding was renewed on December 9, 2019. The review and approval process applies to this project. Environmental studies have been performed for the proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project to support environmental clearance in accordance with NEPA. The environmental analyses are necessary to identify, avoid, and minimize effects to the human and natural environments. Notices for this public hearing were advertised in the Round Rock Leader and on the TxDOT.gov website under Public Meetings and Hearings. The project environmental assessment and environmental technical reports are available on the project website. Given the unique circumstance of the COVID-19 outbreak, along with our commitment to protecting public health during this national emergency, this public hearing is being conducted virtually to minimize in-person contact. The presentation will cover the same information that would have been shared at an in-person public hearing. However, the process for submitting comments is different. Details on how to submit a comment and have your questions addressed will be covered later on in this presentation. All project information can be found on the City of Round Rock and TxDOT websites. This virtual public hearing is being held in compliance with federal and state laws. For the official record, a transcript of this hearing will be made. This virtual public hearing is being held to receive and consider comments from the public regarding the Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. Many of you may have attended previous public hearings conducted by the City of Round Rock or TxDOT. However, for the benefit of those of you who have never attended one, I will explain how and why the public hearings are conducted. A public hearing has 4 essential purposes: to inform the public of the project status and present the recommendations based on studies performed to date, to describe the project so those attending can determine the project's potential to affect their lives and property, to provide the public an opportunity to see information and express their views at a stage in the planning process when flexibility to respond to comments still exists and before location and design decisions are finalized, and finally, to develop a record of public views and participation to accompany recommendations for subsequent decisions. This virtual public hearing is being held in compliance with federal and state laws. For the official record, a transcript of this hearing will be made. Any comments received as a result of this public hearing will be included in the official record of the public hearing and considered by the project team. The next step in the process would be to complete the environmental process and obtain an environmental decision. Additionally, the project design will be finalized. Your statements and comments will be given full consideration in the preparation of the final recommendation and design for the Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. Public comments will be accepted in a number of ways. Verbal comments can be provided by leaving a message via voicemail at 512-815-3240. Written comments can be emailed to the project team at kennyfortboulevard@gmail.com or mailed to CPNY, attention Stacy Benningfield, 13809 Research Boulevard, Suite 300, Austin, Texas, 78750. Comments must be received or postmarked by Friday, December 18, 2020, to be included in the official public hearing record. However, you may email project staff at any time in the project development process to ask questions about the project. Kenny Fort Boulevard is an important element of the city's transportation master plan. What is now known as Kenny Fort Boulevard was originally referred to as Arterial A. Kenny Fort Boulevard is being constructed in phases. The first phase, Segment 1, was completed during the summer of 2013 and extends from Joe DiMaggio Boulevard to Forest Creek Drive. This public hearing focuses on the proposed Segments 2 and 3. Segments 2 and 3 would extend Kenny Fort Boulevard south from Forest Creek Drive. Development of the proposed Segments 2 and 3 project was initiated in 2016. In 2018, the city applied for and was awarded federal construction funding for the project from the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, awarded the construction funding federalized the project, making it subject to environmental review requirements of NEPA. The next slides will cover the design aspects of the Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. The design schematic and environmental documentation for the project may be viewed online at www.roundrock.texas.gov/transport-projects/Kenny-Fort-segments-2-3. The information on the website is the same information being presented in this video. The proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project extends approximately 1.5 miles from Forest Creek Drive south to State Highway 45 north, within the city of Round Rock in Williamson County, Texas. The project is needed because increased traffic congestion in the area has resulted in a lack of mobility and increased safety concerns. The proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project is consistent with local and regional planning efforts and documents. It is included in the City of Round Rock's Transportation Master Plan and the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's Long-Range Transportation Plan. The proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project would be on new location. There is no existing facility within the project limits. Construction of the proposed Segments 2 and 3 project would serve to eliminate an existing gap in the roadway network between Forest Creek Drive and SH 45 North. The proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 typical section would match Kenny Fort Boulevard Segment 1. The roadway would be a limited access 6-lane divided major arterial consisting of 3 12-foot travel lanes in each direction. Directions of travel would be separated by a variable width raised median. A curb, gutter, and storm sewer would be installed the entire length of the project. A continuous sidewalk and shared use path would connect neighborhoods along the route to the existing Brushy Creek Trail System and Old Settlers Park. Improvements to the intersections of Kenny Fort Boulevard with Gaddis School Road and with SH 45 North would be included in the project. Contingent on the receipt of environmental clearance, construction of the proposed project is anticipated to begin in August of 2021. Construction is expected to take approximately 18 to 24 months to complete. The estimated total cost for the project is approximately $21 million, which would be a combination of federal and local funds. This concludes the project information and design portion of the presentation. The next few slides will provide an overview of the environmental evaluation for the proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. An environmental assessment has been prepared for the proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. Throughout the assessment, 2 alternatives were considered: the build alternative, described in this presentation, and the no-build alternative. A set of issue-specific technical reports were developed and used to inform the environmental assessment. Collectively, the environmental documentation for the project addressed the potential environmental impacts that would occur as a result of the proposed project. The areas of potential impacts included natural, social, and cultural resources, as well as potential impacts to adjacent and surrounding land use. The technical reports were approved by TxDOT and have been, when required, coordinated with other public agencies. TxDOT has approved the draft environmental assessment, the findings of which are presented through this virtual public hearing. This slide shows a list of topics that were considered during the environmental study and development of the environmental assessment. The following slides include a summary of more notable findings. The known utilities have been identified and mapped. Conflicting utilities within the corridor would be coordinated and resolved prior to construction in the area. It is reasonably foreseeable that utilities will have to be relocated as a result of this project. The impacts resulting from relocating utilities have been considered. The build alternative would require 35.9 acres of right-of-way. 12.6 acres of these are owned by the state of Texas and fall under the jurisdiction of TxDOT. The city of Round Rock has initiated at-risk acquisition of the remaining right-of-way. Currently, all but 0.26 acres have been acquired. All right-of-way was acquired in accordance with state and federal regulations governing federally funded transportation projects. No displacements would occur as a result of right-of-way acquisition. In addition to the 35.9 acres of required right-of-way, a 0.2 acre permanent easement would also be necessary. Visual impacts are anticipated because the proposed project would be a new roadway where there is currently undeveloped land. Fences and noise walls, if constructed, would have a surface treatment consistent with others used within the city. The project would include landscaping consistent with the City of Round Rock standards. Potential impacts to the visual and aesthetic environment would be limited to the immediate vicinity of the proposed roadway. There are a total of 9 surface water features found in the project area. 6 of these features are likely jurisdictional waters of the United States. The remaining 3 are likely non-jurisdictional. Project-related impacts to jurisdictional waters of the U.S. would require a permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. 2 potential wetlands were identified within the project area. Actions were taken during design to minimize wetland impacts. However, minor permanent impacts would occur. MATs and other best management practices, or BMPs, would be used during construction to minimize soil disturbance and the potential for erosion and sedimentation within the wetlands. Even with the use of BMPs, wetlands could receive an increased amount of sediment from runoff during storm events. Upon completion of construction, care would be taken to ensure that temporary impacts are mitigated by restoring pre-construction contours and revegetating disturbed areas. The proposed project requires a Section 404 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because of unavoidable impacts to jurisdictional waters of the U.S., including wetlands. The City of Round Rock has initiated the permitting process and is working with the Corps to develop a mitigation plan. The permit would be secured and the mitigation plan approved by the Corps before any construction-related work within the jurisdictional waterways could occur. 0.94 acres of the proposed project is located within a Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, designated 100-year floodplain along Dyer Branch and Gaddis School Road. The hydraulic design for this project would be in accordance with the current FHWA and TxDOT design policies. As shown here, 5 vegetation communities were mapped within the project area. Impacts to vegetation would be avoided or minimized by limiting disturbance to only that which is necessary to construct the proposed project. A native and locally adapted seed mix would be used in landscaping and revegetation of disturbed areas. Impacts to wildlife have also been considered. The proposed project would have no effect on any federally listed threatened or endangered species, nor to any species currently identified as a candidate for federal listing as a threatened or endangered species. There is suitable habitat in the project area for the timber rattlesnake, a state-listed threatened species. During construction, best management practices would be employed to avoid harming the species should it be encountered. Species of greatest conservation need are neither state nor federally listed or protected. Instead, they are species that have been identified by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department as declining or rare and in need of attention to recover or to prevent the need to list as either a state or federally listed threatened or endangered species. The potential for project-related impacts to these species has been coordinated with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Best management practices, when defined, would be used during construction to avoid harming these species. A traffic noise analysis was completed according to TxDOT and FHWA guidelines. The analysis showed traffic noise impacts would occur at multiple receivers. Additional analysis was then conducted to determine where noise barriers would be both feasible and reasonable as defined in the noise guidelines. Based on this analysis, noise barriers were found to be feasible and reasonable for impacted receivers within the Preserve at Dyer Creek and Rolling Ridge neighborhoods. Before a decision is made regarding inclusion of the noise barriers in the project, a workshop with affected property owners will be conducted. Following the workshop, affected property owners would be allowed to vote for or against the noise barriers. The proposed Kenny Fort Boulevard project required coordination with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. That coordination is complete. Investigations and surveys for cultural resources were conducted. No impacts to historic or archaeological resources are anticipated. Coordination with the Texas Historical Commission is also complete. In conclusion, the studies, analyses, and evaluations performed indicate the proposed project causes no significant environmental impacts. A finding of no significant impact, referred to as a FONSI, is anticipated. Receipt of the FONSI, which serves as the environmental decision for the proposed project, would complete the environmental and public involvement phase of project development. More information about the proposed project and anticipated environmental impacts of the project can be found in the draft environmental assessment and environmental technical reports and documentation. That information can be found on the project website at www.roundrock.gov. roundrock.texas.gov/transport-projects/Kenny-Fort-Boulevard-segments-2-3. After the public comment period closes on December 18, 2020, a public hearing report will be prepared. The report will include a summary of all comments received as well as responses to those comments. The public hearing report and documentation will be reviewed by TxDOT. If there are no major issues arising from this hearing that cannot be addressed in a reasonable time frame, the final environmental decision is expected in spring of 2021. As mentioned earlier, the construction of the project is expected to begin in the summer of 2021, contingent upon environmental clearance. This concludes the environmental evaluation portion of the presentation. All comments and questions will be fully considered and responded to in the project record and made part of the public hearing summary report. This document will then be made available for public review at www.roundrock.texas.gov/Kenny-Fort-Boulevard-segments-2-3. As a reminder, there are several methods available for you to leave a public comment. All forms of comments must be received or postmarked by Friday, December 18, 2020, to be part of the official public hearing record. Verbal comments can be provided by leaving a message via voicemail at 512-815-3240. Written comments can be emailed to the project team at kennyfortboulevard@gmail.com or mailed to CPNY, attention Stacy Benningfield, 13809 Research Boulevard, Suite 300, Austin, Texas 78750. To learn more about the project, visit the project page on the City of Round Rock website. The URL is listed on the screen. We sincerely appreciate your interest in the Kenny Fort Boulevard Segments 2 and 3 project. Your questions, comments, and concerns will receive careful consideration. Thank you for participating in the virtual public hearing. This concludes the presentation and the hearing is now adjourned.